Welcome to Beyond the Margins, Inside the Mind Shaping Modern Finance. I'm your host, Sharice Arneson, and today we're diving into the evolving world of financial advisory practice management with someone who's been guiding advisors toward operational excellence and smarter growth for years, David Leo, founder of Street Smart Research Group, LLC. David, thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, you've built a reputation for helping financial advisors refine their practices and scale sustainably. I'm excited to explore your insights on how firms can stay agile in such a fast-changing environment. Before we jump into the strategies and systems side of things, I always like to start by getting to know the person behind the business. Now, you've had quite a career journey in the financial advisory world. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start Street Smart Research Group and what drives your passion for coaching advisors?
Yeah, it's a great question. I worked for IBM for 30 years, and after 30 years, I retired. But prior to leaving, my last position was as an engagement manager and a senior consultant, working with banks and brokerages on helping them resolve issues that they wanted to resolve. It was in the early 90s, so it was pretty interesting. One of the first jobs was with a bank, helping to justify the idea of having online services for their clients. So that was particularly interesting. We did that in probably 1993, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the business. And when I retired, I went with a gentleman who was my manager at the time over to UBS, which was Payne Weber at the time. And the first job I had was helping them develop their online presence also. All of the companies that now have online presence really only started in the mid 90s, and it was a thrill to be in that at the time. I worked during those 7 years at UBS with advisors virtually 100% of the time, and learned how they did their business and became aware of things that they didn't do as well as I would have hoped. Things like using their CRM, which also was novel back in the mid-late 90s, and how they worked with clients. So I gathered mental data on how they worked. And actually, in a downturn in 2001, after 7 years with UBS, they didn't need my services anymore. Let me put it that way. And I was heavily involved in retail technology, retail brokerage technology, and I wasn't ready to retire. So I started talking to people about opportunities. I came across one of the gentlemen that was coaching financial advisors. I spoke with him, and I started working with another firm to help financial advisors improve their business. That's been going on for the last 25 years. My passion, which is a word I tend to use a little. I mean, I would like, if I go to a French restaurant and they have great food, I'm passionate about that. And I love the work I do. I'm inspired by being to help people. And I guess maybe that's the passion. And for me, at my age, it's quite unusual. It's probably the only unusual thing about me. I'm 87 years of age. And I find that doing the kind of work that I do keeps my mind going. And I'm excited by learning. Every job I've ever had has been important to me for the learning I've taken from it. So I continue to learn, and I love sharing what I've learned over the years. That's what drives me. And it's simply that. It's just exciting to be able to help people get where they want to go. I keep my practice small so I can devote the time to it, but that's the story. That's a
I
long
love it. Well, you must have acquired quite a bit of experience. So I say good for you for keeping on with it and wanting to help others grow and learn from your experiences. So for those who may not be familiar with what you do, could you walk us through the types of services you offer to financial advisors and what
Sure.
makes your approach distinct?
Yeah. The coaching services, how do we describe that? Find that the financial advisors have four basic tasks that they do. They get clients is one, business development. They retain clients through service, the services they provide, and they invest their money, which is the third area. And then the fourth area is a mishmash of things, everything from CE credits, studying for new designations, answering the hundreds of emails all of us get every day, trying to keep up with what the firm wants to give you, and all of those things. So I put that in a basket of administrative actions and how to distribute your time across all these four major activities. Obviously, there's sub activities within them, but what coaching is trying to understand where the particular financial advisor is having difficulty. Is it retaining clients? Are they giving the right service levels? Are they getting remunerated properly from the clients they have? So that's that client set, that current client set. And how do they go about getting new clients? All the literature will tell you that about 2/3 of all acquisition is through introductions from existing clients and from centers of influence. There are other means as well. There's another third of business development, and we work on those areas that are most appropriate for that particular advisor, what their skills are, what their experiences are, what kind of book of business they have. Should they be developing a niche market based on their book of business? And as far as investment management, I don't give advice on how they should invest. That's exactly their job. But from working with advisors a lot over the years, it's my belief that we don't need 300,000 or 325,000 advisors picking stocks independently. Most of them have given that up, and they use models from their own company or models from wholesalers, or they outsource some of these things. So we talk about those things more from a process perspective. And then in the fourth area, I help them manage. Everybody argues with saying you can't manage time. You can only manage how you use it, which is correct, of course. But what we know is that the opportunity to do things is infinite and the time you have is finite. And I try and help them figure out how to best use the limited resources they have, whether it's 40 or 50 hours a week or 60 in some cases, as well as understanding, because I've been through a lot, that they have a life to spend as well. So I try and work with them on both efficiency and effectiveness of their businesses across all of these four areas and introduce them to my deep belief, which is in process-based businesses. Certainly wealth management, holistic wealth management, which needs a little more definition, financial planning, but from this perspective, all of that's done within a fixed process. So I hope that answers the question and why I do what I do as well.
Absolutely. So that overall business management for financial advisors is kind of what you're focusing on.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Practice management, business management as well, which is a good point. I have a couple of situations right now where two groups of advisors are talking about teaming. And one thing we know about teaming is it's like a marriage, and you have to have planned it in advance. Too many cases, teams are formed ad hoc after the fact, and they don't go through an understanding of what their mission, vision, values, and goals are. And they have to be consistent across all the individuals of the teams. In that sense, that's one of the bigger areas of business management that I also work on them with, which is a part of practice management, but at a slightly higher level, because you want to bring these thoughts together during the dating period, if you will, before the marriage takes place. And then all of a sudden you find out they don't think about money the same way I think about money. They don't think about time. They don't think about service. You got to get that out in advance.
Absolutely. That's a great point. So, from your perspective, what are the biggest shifts happening in the financial advisory landscape right now?
The The biggest shifts, some of them have been talked about actually for years. They're starting to get more deeply implemented. Everybody's talking about holistic financial planning or comprehensive wealth management. And what that essentially means is that the clients of mine as a financial advisor want me to have a single view of them from all financial perspectives. So in the old days, maybe like last year, the focus was on perhaps investment management and how I pick stocks and what kind of performance I get. And that's moved dramatically to a much deeper view of what clients want. They want everything from I know who they are to taking care of the risks that I face, not only in portfolio selection, but in planning my life. We know things that men have a 5-year shorter lifespan than women. We know that if you want to keep your assets over time, you have to involve the younger generations, especially for very high net worth clients. You have to involve the spouse. In most cases, historically, men have been the primary focus of financial advisors. And all of a sudden, the male passes on, and statistically 70% of women leave their advisor within a year because there's no relationship between the advisor and the spouse, typically the woman, 80% of the time. We also know that 80 or 90% of the very high net worth children of these high net worth people leave their advisor too. So one thing that's changed, I see, is holistic means that also not only the services I provide, but the services I provide them too. The spouse, especially, secondarily, in some cases where it's particularly high net worth, it's this next generation. So that's one change. People have been offering holistic financial planning for years now. But there was a Spectrum study done 2 or 3 years ago only, and they talked about 16 services that clients were expecting and how many of them received it. 14 out of the 16 services that clients were looking for, investors, clients were looking for, were only satisfied 25% of the time. So 75% of the time, the advisor wasn't talking to the client about things that were important to them. And typically, it wasn't financial planning and it wasn't investment management because most of them get those services. But it's things like succession planning. It's things like the family. It's things even like healthcare. It's things like business succession. So there's a whole list of 14 areas where advisors aren't heavily involved in speaking to their clients. Holistic grows. It was before it was about financial planning, and now it's about life planning, as George Kinder has put it. It's a much broader set of things. If I'm not in an organization that has its own estate attorney and its own CPA, what I as an advisor need to do is have strategic relationships with people that I'm very close to, but don't work in my firm, and have a holistic service of services so that I want to have a group that addresses at least 80% of the client's total financial needs. It's difficult to do 100%. The Pareto principle says we should focus on the 20% of things we need to do to get 80% of the problem solved. And so we work on that as well. That's one major change that's happened. One of the other changes that I don't think has happened is there's been a concern about fee in terms of how much an advisor charges. There have been going around that fees have been being compressed over time. And most recent data shows that fees haven't been particularly compressed. Clients are willing to pay the typically 1% if they're getting the services they want. So that's also pushing the need for more holistic offerings and making sure that we touch base with that client over all of their interests. It just happened within the last week that one of my clients has a gentleman that didn't want to have his spouse involved at all. And I put together a whole list of reasons why it's critical for him to have his spouse involved. Look, if he doesn't care, it's a ridiculous assumption. If he doesn't care what happens after he passes on, you have a problem. But that's not normal. So
Right.
we need to address the reality. Many of us, including me, don't like some of the realities, like we're going to pass away. It's not a fun thought. But, so advisors are responsible for addressing those things as well. The other thing that's changed dramatically is technology. So today there's technology. Financial planning has been around for a good number of years. And there are three primary vendors and probably another couple dozen that are secondary. But the three primary vendors probably provide 80% of the software. And some of those are expanding in good ways. But then there are other technologies that are coming out. There's estate planning technology that's coming, that's here. There's a tax planning technology that's out there today. It's difficult for small firms to afford all the technology, and that's not why there's driving consolidation, but it is a function of consolidation of the industry, because a firm that can consolidate and get better price and share costs over a larger base helps. So there's a lot of things that are driving consolidation: productivity, effectiveness, availability of software, having somebody to be able to outsource your compliance to or outsource your technology to. Then, of course, there's AI, the very latest of the technology. I think it's the latest. I didn't check this morning's email, but
Yeah.
um, uh, but you have AI and its impact. And I use AI a fair amount. And it was funny because a friend of mine complained that one of the AI tools that she uses is restricting her ability to get as much done as she wants to get done. And I said, "What did you do last year?" Uh, it's an interesting world. So I would say the broadening of the services, the technology. Another thing that recently came out within the last, certainly within the last 6 months, I think McKinsey did a study that said that the financial advisor marketplace is going to be short 100,000 advisors by, I think it was 2030. So, um, it's very difficult for a young advisor, 25 years old, to convince a 55-year-old millionaire that that person should do business with him. So trying to integrate young talent into the business is becoming a bigger issue. I've done a lot of focusing on that as well. I have 3 published articles on that and another one in the works, developing methods that I think are more effective for young advisors. So that's an interesting area that hasn't hit the forefront quite yet. McKinsey has the numbers, but it's if you hire a 25-year-old to help you on a team, they're not going to be productive for a long while. So how do you handle the payment to that individual? You have to cost a lot, and if they don't make it, you start over again. And so it's a very, very interesting area and something that I've tried to work on to help alleviate.
Definitely. I think that is being seen across all industries. The need to get younger talent on board, but also how do you cover the costs involved with that when you're not going to see an immediate return on that investment and no guarantee that they're going to stick around long enough to get that return.
And that's right. And Cerulli said that 72% of young financial advisors don't make it. So it's not only the first time cost, it's
Mm,
4 times the cost. If
right.
only 28% are making it, or a quarter. You have to do it 4 times before you get a good one. That's expensive.
You mentioned technology as an opportunity. I'd love to hear how you're seeing AI start to influence advisory practices. Are your clients experimenting with automation and intelligent tools in their operations?
To some degree, I think that that's mostly been fairly what I would call low level in helping do their writing, emails. One of the things I've strongly suggest is that, of course, you post every action to your CRM when you have it with the client. I've suggested that if you have a year's worth of CRM data on a client, you can ask AI to gather all that data and prepare what I call a CAPS letter. CAPS letter was interesting. When I was a salesman for IBM back in the early 70s, we used a CAPS letter. It's called the Client Annual Progress Summary Letter, which tries to answer the question to the client, what have you done for me lately? So if you've kept good records, you can use AI to summarize all that data and say, this is what we did last year. This is what you're paying me for. And that I haven't seen used, but I think it's a great idea, and there's no reason not to use it. We have recorded all the meetings that we have using some tools, AI tools, and they give us a summary, and no reason we can't develop that. So that's one thing, but I mostly see emails, newsletters, things like that. I spoke to a company recently who offers tools to convert basically narratives into process-based AI solutions, but I haven't really seen that yet. Much of what I do is process based, but I can't technology to a company. I can only give them the process because each company has their own technology. So I haven't seen as much of that used beyond some of the basics, and then of course research, which I do a lot. It's a fantastic time saver once you learn how to use the tool.
Yes. Now, you work closely with advisory teams on efficiency and business growth. What are some strategies you've seen really move the needle recently?
As I say, it's 2/3 is referrals. And one of my clients at a wirehouse just has a way of offering his service that has been effective. And this is the one that I promote. It's not complex. It's not, you don't ask for referrals or introductions. It's saying, as a service to you, if you have friends or family that are concerned about what's going on in the markets because of its volatility, because we reach a new plateau all the time, because there's questions about the economy. If you have people in your lives that are concerned about what's going on, I'd be happy to be a voice of reason for them. And there's no obligation to become a client. If they're important to you, they're important to me. It just says that you're open for business and that you want to help. So you're not asking for something, you're offering a service. That's simple. I mean, it's not necessarily easy, but it's simple. And that's one thing that's been effective for a number of my clients. The other thing on centers of influence, there was a study done a while back that the elite advisors have 3.8 center of influence relationships. I don't know who the point 0.8 is, but anyway, that's a statistical number. So instead of having 15 or 20 or more centers of influence, the effective way to do it is by having 3 or 4 or 5 people that you are strategically close to. You treat them as you would your very best client. You're in contact with them every 45 days. You have a meal with them 2 or 3 times a year. You get a handshake agreement that, look, we want to work together. You may form, as one of my clients did, a personal business counsel with a CPA, trust and estate attorney, um, a business consultant, and you form a small community and you meet regularly. And there are groups like BNI, which is a cross networking group, but you form your own little group and you provide the breadth of services, as I mentioned before, through strategic relationships that you work with each other closely. Not all trust and estate attorneys and CPAs want to be committed to a single advisor, but you have to find somebody that is willing to do that. Those two things are most important to get done, is how you ask for introductions and the relationships you build with centers of influence. The third and fourth thing one is niches. And if you have a lot of medical professionals in your practice, you might want to consider building a niche around those. Medical professionals have been gone after by financial advisors for 50 years because they're supposedly high earners, and many are, but they're difficult to get a hold of. So there are ways that you can build credibility within that group and get introductions. If you have 4 or 5 or 6 medical professionals within your group, you look for a 20-minute interview with them on what the things that are particularly important to them, and ask if there's some other people that you don't know that you can speak to get their input. And that's an approach to niche marketing that's been effective. And the fourth one is something I call targeted roundtables. There's a question whether big events and dinner events are highly effective or not. I haven't had a lot of clients doing that. But targeted roundtable means if I know my book of business and if I have somebody that's in a particular company and they're a good client, I can ask, can we get 3 or 4 people together that want to hear about what's going on in the markets or want to hear what a financial plan's about? Let's sit down over lunch and have an educational meeting. And I get to meet people that way. So, and they're a homogeneous group, whether it's a bridge club or a book club or somebody from the same company or people that travel together, you're looking for a homogeneous group where somebody is willing to help you put together an educational piece. And from that, you get to meet people, you find out what they want, and you can prospect that way. Those are, out of the 23 or so solutions that I have on a list, those are 4 or 5 of the ones that seem most effective. And there's nothing unique about them. I have found trying to do it on social media hasn't been particularly effective for me. I write articles. I've written over 100 and had many published articles. And occasionally I'll get something from that name recognition, but it really takes a one-on-one relationship to build your business. The mass marketing approach, I get 10 people a day wanting to sell me lead generation systems. And, I don't particularly like putting 1 million people at the top of a funnel to get 4 people out the bottom. There was a book I read that talks about digital pollution, and that's what I keep thinking of is there's enough digital pollution out there. I don't, it
Right?
hasn't been effective, but yet I don't want to create anymore.
Well, those 4 things you mentioned are powerful. I appreciate you sharing them, David.
Of
And I
course.
think many of our listeners can relate to that need for having clarity and direction in their business and, being able to just have those specific relationships that, provide them with the ability to connect their clients with the people that can actually get their problem solved. So that is huge. What would you say is the biggest misconception about financial advisors today?
That's a hard question. I'm not sure I know enough to give a statistically satisfactory answer, but I can read a lot that financial advisors aren't always trusted. I think that's going away and has gone away. I haven't met a financial advisor that doesn't care about what she or he does and how they service their clients. But those are the people that I talk to, the people that care and that want to improve. There's an advertisement on TV that says we're different because we're a fiduciary, which I strongly object to in words that don't belong on a podcast. But I believe a fiduciary is a state of mind. It's not a legal principle. So, I want to do the best for my clients, and my clients want to do the best for their clients. My favorite client has become a friend of mine. We've been working together for 12 or 13 years now. Cares so deeply about his people that it keeps his business smaller than it could be. And a lot of my clients care about their clients very, very much. All of them do. And I think it's a misconception. And that's one of the things that investors really have to take upon themselves to look at is this person trustworthy? If you sit down and talk to them, look, I sell my services too, and I don't want people thinking I'm going to grab their arm and force a pen into it and make them sign a contract. I don't have contracts with any of my clients. Just have a conversation. Just have a conversation. And if they start off talking about performance, if they start talking about themselves, it's a problem. If they start talking about you and ask you what's important to you about your life, and how does money fit into it, and what are your family needs, and you can get a sense of their sincerity and whether they're trustworthy. So I think it's a two-way street. It has to be on the part of the advisor, and virtually all of the ones I know, including mine, I trust them implicitly. I don't want to deal with the markets. I don't want to deal with knowing which bond to pick or which stocks to use. Or that doesn't interest me. So I have an advisor, and when he calls me up and says I want to do this, I say fine, and go ahead. What do I know that's going to help him? I have to trust him, and I've been with them for 30 years. So yeah, it's all about feeling that they care about your life almost as much as you do. And certainly on the financial space, that's their job. I think it's a misconception. There are untrustworthy people everywhere. We know that. We have to guard ourselves against it. Uh, but having a conversation and looking at their core and finding it should take that away. Honestly, sometimes they're thought of as used car salesmen, and they're not. In fact, this client of mine that I speak a lot about is telling me how much pressure he feels on himself to make sure he doesn't screw up for his clients. And it's a lot of responsibility. Other than healthcare and your family, money is the big thing, and you don't want to have people hurt by your actions. So my experience has been good.
Yeah. That's wonderful. No, I never really thought of how much pressure that would be on the financial advisors, when they do care and know that they're the in between for somebody's financial security and retirement options, and that it would definitely be. Is that something that you see common throughout the industry? A lot of stress from that aspect?
I see some, but it's not extraordinary. I mean, I think people are concerned, but look, you and I have concerns and we have anxieties about doing our best. I know I do, and I'm sure you do. Um, so I don't mean to joke about it. I don't see a high suicide rate in financial advisors, but
Okay,
but I'm
good.
sure, but it is high stress. It's not exactly
Yes.
like going to war, but uh, they need to put it in perspective. And if I read just recently that if you're doing the best you can, you're doing as much as you can. And the ones I know all do the best they can. Nobody's perfect.
If you could wave a magic wand and solve one major challenge for advisors today, what would that be?
It's a problem that's been going on for many, many years, and that's integrated technology. So, I buy a piece of technology for financial planning. I buy a piece of technology for estate planning, for tax planning. And some of it is integrated from a data point of view, but from coming up with a composite answer and using all the data that's available, that's been a problem since I've been in the industry literally for 60 years. The integrating technology is a huge problem. And some firms are doing that, but you have to also be limited to their technology, and sometimes new technology comes from somewhere else. So that's a difficult issue. Certainly, cybersecurity is an issue, has been for a while, but I think the integration of technology would be it. And from my perspective, I would like to see all advisors be process based. It's probably not as big a problem, and that's one that has to be solved with your own resources. So if I have a team of 4 people, I want everybody on the team to do the same client review process the same way. We're consistent from a compliance standpoint. We're consistent from an effectiveness and efficiency standpoint. We can train people because we have a single methodology. Not every company has to have the same set of processes, but everybody needs to be process-based. The model I developed, I call the 6 core client-facing processes. And the first process is discovery. The second is financial planning. The third is risk management. The fourth is investment management. The fifth is client service. And the sixth is the client review process. Each of these has subcomponents, but I want people to have processes for how they do everything. I want their investment philosophy written down so that everybody in the company has a common view, so that they can explain it to clients. So when new people come into the business, they know what they're getting into. So I think we're further from that. We're further from that than we should be. The two things are integration of technology and the implementation of processes. You can still do personalization within processes, but personalization takes place at the human level. Personalization is another one of those principles where the 80-20 has to come into play. 20% of my clients that are 80% of my business need to be personal. The rest need to be strict process based. Otherwise, you can't run a business.
I like that advice, David. Before we wrap up, tell us what you would recommend for financial advisors or business leaders who want to stay competitive and relevant as the industry evolves.
Excellence in execution. There's a strategy book I read a long time ago by Kenichi Ome, the mind of a strategist who ran the McKinsey office in Japan. The book is yellow by now. And he said, when all else is equal, I make the difference. That's it. I have to be excellent in everything I do. Doesn't mean I'm 100% right. It means I have to be pushing for excellence. Vince Lombardi said, there's no such thing as perfection, but if I seek perfection, I can achieve excellence. I think it's they say that investment management or portfolios are commoditized. They are in terms of what you can deliver, but they're still critically important to the client. It doesn't mean because they're commoditized that they're not important. And so I want to deliver that with excellence. I want the client to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. That's it. And when I do financial planning, I want to have it be complete from end to end. I want to be able to service the client in all their regards. I don't work with clients who have a jet that they can fly people to their holiday in Mallorca or things like that. That's not an important part of my life or my clients' lives. My financial advisor clients don't buy tickets or help a client go to dinner or things like that. They help them live their lives as best they can with the resources they have. Simple, not easy, as I said before. So you just have to do your best job every single day for your clients. And if you can't serve a client well, it behooves you to figure out what's better for them. And that's one of the hardest decisions some of them make. I have a client with low assets that takes a lot of time and it's unprofitable from a business perspective. How do I manage that?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Excellence in everything. I love that. David, thank you again for joining us on Beyond the Margins. Your insights on operational excellence and growth strategies are incredibly relevant as finance continues to evolve. If our listeners would like to connect with you, how best can they do that?
Just David at Coach David Leo is one way. It's best to contact me through email or to contact me through Calendly, which is David I. Leo. So it's calendly.com /David I. Leo, because there's another David Leo without the I, David I. Leo.
Sounds good.
It's been a
Thank you
joy.
Yes, thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Margins, Inside the Mind Shaping Modern Finance. If you enjoyed this conversation with David today, please be sure to like and follow and subscribe. Your support helps us to impact more leaders from across the world of finance.